Good day,
Howdy.
hello, and welcome to the next episode of
Just
One
one thing.
Thing. Just One Thing is the podcast of Mindful Living Today. You can also find us on Facebook at Mindful Couple, and as always, I would urge you to join our very supportive group on Facebook groups, Mindful Living Today with Lisa and Brad. That's on Facebook groups.
And we're also on Instagram, the
I
Mindful
keep
Couple.
forgetting we are on The Mindful Couple on Instagram.
Instagram.
With that, let's slide into today's episode. And we talked about a variety of topics this morning while we were walking to see what we wanted to chat about. I think today we're going to talk about two questions that if you ask yourself every day and you consider them, you might find yourself improving your life a little bit and becoming at least a little bit happier. And I haven't decided what the title is yet, so that's why I'm sort of just talking about it. You'll probably see it then when I actually post it. And we had a little bit of a discussion about that, and I was going to say, let's discuss how to argue productively, because we were exploring different options and ways of recording this, and I don't know that we disagreed per se, but
No.
it was just interesting thing. So anyway, two questions that you should ask yourself every day. And let me ask you, where did these come from, and what are the two questions? Because I think you're the one that
you haven't really done this,
started
but
to
I
change
have.
your life a little bit by
Yes.
asking these questions.
Yes. So the first question came from, oh boy, can't remember. It might be Tal Ben Shahir.
Happier.
It might be that, but for some reason it's just gone completely out of my head where it came from. And the first, well, here's what I like about these questions. What I like about both of these questions is, first of all, they force you to put yourself in the moment, to experience your body, your mind, your thought, your thinking, your surroundings, all that kind of stuff, which to me is a great way to
improve your mindfulness.
But also expand your understanding of how you are navigating and experiencing life.
Okay.
And for me, I think life for most of up until a couple of years ago, so 58 years, for the last 4 years maybe, someone 62, a lot of it was just a blur. I just experienced so many emotions and feelings. It just felt like life was constantly overwhelming without having any idea what I was really feeling and what I was really experiencing. And so the first one, I believe, came
Question
from
number one.
Question number one is, this is what it feels like too. So it's not really a question, but it's a statement.
Well, it ends with a question mark.
It could, because there's an implied, obviously, since it's empty, you're going to fill in the blank. But when you first hear this, it sounds very innocuous. Like, how could that possibly do anything?
So give me an example of what it means to ask that question. So
all right, I can give you the perfect example. Okay. All right. So for me, most of my life, I did not feel lovable. I felt outside of everybody and everything. I felt very disconnected, very lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And to cover that up as a human, our human response to that is to cover it with anger, cover it with whatever. And the emotions, I mean, when you start feeling this way as a child, emotions to me, if you don't have any coping skills, which I had none, emotions become this rubber band ball of stuff. It's just glommy stuff.
A lot of stuff that we've talked about before.
Right,
you can't really tell what it is. It's just
Right, yeah, it's like ick. Ick is it, and you don't have any idea what it is. And so it's very hard if you're experiencing that ball of emotions when something is not perfect, which most of life is not perfect, to know, what am I feeling? Is it a good feeling? Is it a bad feeling? Is it something that I need to do something about? Is this actually a moment when I'm being cherished and I don't recognize it? Is this actually a moment? Am I really being disrespected or being talked down to or whatever? All of that stuff becomes unclear when you don't have the right coping mechanism and the decoding system to process it as it comes at you. And that's what I've had to learn. So the best example I can give you is, we've been married how many years? 42 years?
Coming on 42.
42 coming up. And you're delightful. You are a lovely husband, probably the best husband. I mean, you are a devoted, wonderful, wonderful man. I'm very fortunate to have you and always have been. But because of my frame of mind and where I came from, I I did not know what the feeling of love was. So even though I knew a relationship was special, I didn't feel loved because I didn't
Okay.
know what, it's not like you can feel tape coming off. What is that? What is
Okay.
that feeling? What is that feeling associated with being loved? And so this probably happened 4 years ago, about the time that I started reading this book. And you were going off, oh, it must have been longer than that because you were going off to work. So it was when you were still working, so maybe 6 years ago. And you were heading out the door, and instead you came back and you kissed me on the head. And I had been practicing that statement.
Okay.
And that statement immediately came to mind.
This is what it feels like
to be loved.
Ah, okay. I'm glad I could pass that along to
And
you.
so that was really the
nice.
first time, other than the overwhelming feeling of young, infatuation.
Right.
It was really the first time that I was like, I get it. I get that this is what it is. And it changed how I viewed a lot of things, because suddenly I was able to put a name to a reaction, to a response, to a demonstration or whatever.
Helps you sort out your emotions,
right?
And what's going on in my body and my brain,
right.
with my stories and my background and all that stuff.
Right. And in order to do that, I did have to, when I first started doing this, which I practiced this for weeks before that particular experience, but I did have to print off a list of emotions.
Well, yeah, and we've talked about that before. I think practicing those, like, oh, this is what it feels like to be loved.
Right.
This is what it feels like when I'm angry.
Right.
This is what it feels like when I'm sad.
Right.
This is what it feels like when I'm happy.
Right.
All of those kinds of things. When you practice that, ask that question what is I'm. You could also flip it around and says, what am I feeling right now? And so it feels like this when it feels like this too.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I urge, when you try this, don't settle for the automated knee-jerk responses.
Okay.
Angry, happy. Those are ones that come easily to mind. Right. What's that next layer down? And it's when you start looking at that next layer, or even the third layer down, that you can come up with some of those really specific, cherished, instead of loved, cherished.
Right. And I think as you practice this, you'll find that the nuance of different types of experiences is incredible.
Yes.
It's like a box of crayons.
It is.
When you start off, you have like your 8 colors,
right.
with the big fat crayons that are hard to color with. And the more practiced you get with this, now I have a 32 box of crayons,
or
a 64 box, or 128.
Right.
Like I have all these subtle different crayons,
choices,
and I can color the picture of life, to use this metaphor.
Oh, it's a beautiful metaphor.
So much more thoroughly,
fully,
completely, fully,
yes.
And
and
really
now
get
you're
more out of it.
And in that way, you are experiencing life more fully, because you're not just feeling. To me, I had 2 choices. I was either I had 3: angry, sad, or happy.
Oh, okay.
I mean, like that was all I had,
Gotcha.
And so when you only have 3, life becomes kind of flat.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
it's kind of gray and beige.
And your ability to react and negotiate and navigate life becomes very one-dimensional
and very narrow.
Yeah.
Just very, very narrow.
Like I can either say, "Oh yeah, that's great. Let's go for a drink together," or I can punch you in the nose.
Right. That's my choices.
Okay, that's awesome. So the first question was, this is what it
feels
like when,
to, or when.
So what is the second question that has been so profound for you?
The second question I just read, and it's in this little book. I think it's called The Little Book of Gratitude, or some little journal of gratitude, or something. It's this beautiful little, very small, like 5x7, very thick book with gold gilt edges. They've done a beautiful job of making it feel very special and treasured. Mm-hmm. But each page has just actually the science of gratitude and happiness. Okay. And this is from I want to say a professor that studies happiness and gratitude out of maybe Stanford.
Okay.
I could be remembering
Big
wrong.
center there.
Anyway, and so in order to be more aware of what you are experiencing in the moment, and especially to be aware of moments that it's good, that something good is happening. Mm-hmm. You ask, and this has to be a question: is this one of those precious moments? Is this one of those happy moments? Is this one of those, moments to be grateful for? Or what could I be grateful for in this moment?
Gotcha.
And again, it sounds ridiculous, but I had a very profound experience that we just shared on our podcast over at the dentist on Thursday, whatever day it was that I went to the dentist, and I'm terrified of the dentist, literally terrified. And so there is nothing good for me. There is no good for it.
2 hours of terror
it's
and
absolute
distress.
Terror. It is absolute terror.
And waiting to be paid.
Right. Waiting for something awful to happen. And waiting to be not listened to and anything. And because I've been practicing this question for only a couple days. Okay. But while I'm laying there and they're asking me to open my mouth and I'm ready for, whatever they're going to do, which was not, it was just really the dentist looking in my mouth. But all of a sudden, that question came to my mind. Is this one of these moments that something wonderful is happening that I need to be grateful for? And lo and behold, there was.
And what did you find?
Well, I've searched long and far and hard for a dentist that is good for me, that works well for me. And the hygienist was so patient and so kind and listened to me so well that I could not have asked for a more perfect experience.
Okay, awesome.
And so my gratitude was that, yes, I feel terror, but wait a minute. I also can feel gratitude. And when I felt the gratitude, the fear went away. The fear lessened. It didn't go away because I'm training myself.
Nice. Excellent.
But it definitely lowered the fear and made me realize I'm safe with these people, with this particular dentist, this particular hygienist. I'm safe. So I know that's a very long explanation of why those two statements are so important.
But I think it just like we've talked about many, many times, if you pay attention and you inculcate and cultivate the ability to find, I don't want to say the silver lining, but find something joyful, blissful, peaceful in almost every situation, you can find it.
Right. You absolutely can.
There's something there.
There is something
there.
And
if you teach yourself to seek those out, it will become more and more natural.
Yes.
And even things that are particularly horrible, when you find something that's peaceful, good, makes you happier.
Nice, smile, calming, cheering.
It will just make those experiences so much better, so much more.
Well, that's the thing.
Livable.
More tolerable. It makes the struggles. Right. It makes the struggles more tolerable. So it evens out the ups and downs. So you don't have the terrified, the really peaks and valleys. It smooths life out. And God, what more can we ask for?
And so the just one thing would be ask one of those questions.
Pause and ask one of those. Pick one of them, choose one, and use it for 3 weeks. Just make yourself.
And I think
ask it over
and the
and
more
over.
often, the first one, for example, the more often you pause and say, "This is what it feels like when," or "This is what it feels like to," I think you'll be able to differentiate and be able to more fine tune what emotions.
Oh, absolutely.
What physical sensations you're feeling during any given experience.
Right.
And again, the more you practice finding something
to be
good,
grateful for,
etc., in any given situation, the more
the
it's
easier,
going to become natural to you.
Right, and it shifts. It shifts how you view life because your brain is now trained to look for the good things instead of looking for the bad.
And to emphasize again, these are things that are not necessarily easy.
No, it takes practice.
And they're things that you may not get an immediate breakthrough in terms of being happier, but I guarantee if you practice
it,
it's going to make your life much more
rich,
satisfying, rich, improve you don't like the term well-being, but it's going to make you happier. Okay. It's going to enhance your joy.
Yes, and it evens. It makes the hard times less hard. It just makes the hard times less hard. Right.
And so with that, this has been Just One Thing.